Oh, Pine talking about recent anime. It cannot be. I can't believe it. What did they do to Pine? Bah, let me talk about the anime with the boy with pretty eyes. Right, after more time than 99% of people in the world, I finally watched Jujutsu Kaisen to see what's up. Usually these popular animes that everyone starts talking about are the main ones that I try to run away with all my might. Because most of the time, they are very shallow animes that disappoint me a lot for having so much fame, even though they are kind of a potato. Kimetsu no Yaiba traumatized me for so much mediocrity and being carried just by the animation. Yeah, today I'm ready to take shots. I get really frustrated when an interesting potential is thrown away because of nonsense. But even so, I swallowed my tears and went to see what the anime from that Gojo guy has to offer. And holy shitos. Yeah, it's kinda cool. It's not very complex, but it's very good at what it decides to do. And it's a lot of fun. It's one of those animes that when you come to be, you have already seen about 5 episodes in a row, non-stop. But I started to notice something. Something strange, suspicious. Well, it's like they say, good things always come in three. Before any anime, the new wave of shonen that was popping off in the manga world is the popularly known as the Dark Trio, namely Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, and finally Jigoku Kaku. In this paper medium, what stands out the most is Chainsaw Man. It became so popular that overshadowed the other two. But in turn, in the animated medium, it was Jujutsu Kaisen that stopped the sun from shining on the heads of the other two. And in all of this, I realized something. I've been reading Chainsaw Man for a long time, and like, both of them have the same story. Wait, I'm not saying that one is copying the other, but I found it very funny to note all the similarities that the two works have, whether intentional, unintentional, or simply the case of fate and their theme. What I am talking about? Well,
まだこっちは見せてなかった。
on one side, we have Itadori Yuji, a cool guy but a bit of a stump, with relatively light spiky hair, who didn't have anything special about him, but he's very extroverted and doesn't care. But one day, something insane happens, and for one reason or another, he merges with a demon, and a very scary one at that. Okay. On the other side, we have Denji, a boy with also light and spiky hair that is not very normal and doesn't give a single shit either, and was screwed in life until something insane happened and he merged with the devil, a very scary one too. Yeah, no, it could be just a coincidence. Then they are sort of forced by a mysterious person to join an organization, or in Itadori's case, a school. There is also an organization, right? Let's be honest. Anyway, this person is like a mentor to the main character, and is stupidly strong, which in theory plays the role of the last obstacle, the most dangerous being of all in the story. I'm sure the group of support characters are nothing alike. They are different, right? Itadori has a badass friend with black hair who has a certain serious aura, but is a nice guy despite everything, and he fights using summons that look like a wolf. Denji has that too, but instead of a wolf, it's a fox. No, but Denji has a foul-mouthed friend who, depending on the time of the day, is blonde or red-headed, which serves as a counterbalance to the other two, but is always there and often fights with a hammer made out of blood. Itadori has a red-headed friend who also has a foul mouth, and she fights with a literal hammer. Yeah, you already got what I'm saying, right? But this is superficial. Have I already mentioned the power system? Chainsaw Man, devils that exist as the personification of human emotions and fears, completely visceral and violent creatures, and so certain people in the world are in charge of dealing with them. And how you do that? Making pacts with these same devils, because after all, the best weapon against a hellish creature is another hellish creature. Jujutsu Kaisen, demons that emerge as the accumulation of human emotions and fears. Do I need to say they are visceral? Of course not. They are violent too. Certain people in the world are tasked with dealing with them and keeping the world peace behind the scenes, although they also work with local forces like the police and such. Even though the Jujutsu freaks don't have to make pacts with the demons, certain people in the world do. And it ends up that the protagonists don't fit into any of that and are kind of half and half with the demons, and now they have to know how to deal with that other part of them that share now the same life. Yeah, in this case I think Denji was luckier because Pochita is cool. Itadori is fucked with Sukuna. Although the two series have a balance between tense, violent, blood-spurting parts with humorous others, the two stories have a very different atmosphere from each other, despite all of these things. And in this case, the author's personalities couldn't be more different, and each one creates their characters in their own particular way, and most of them from both works are really very good. Perhaps some of the best characters made in the entire anime medium, and they are all extremely different from each other, so the stories are not the same as each other. But that's where the forces of destiny come in and try to blur their line a little bit more. The two series receive an anime. Jujutsu becomes what everyone thought Chainsaw Man would become. But that's beside the point. Both stories are hugely successful, and before the second season, they both receive a movie that intertwine characters that we have already seen with others that kind of appear out of nowhere and almost don't go beyond the little saga. This is really silly, but do you believe it that these similar things happen even with the voice actors? You know that guy who in anime usually becomes a mini mentor, that in Jujutsu, for Itadori, is the guy with blonde hair and all. Yeah, Nanami, just the best character of them all. This is his voice actor. Yeah, it's the same as this character, who has a very similar role to Denji in Chainsaw Man. It's a little absurd, right? It's funny that usually when you go to see the voice actors of a series, most of the time they have played over 100,000 different roles, and you have probably seen them in other works. But interestingly, both in Jujutsu and in Chainsaw Man, a big part of them, if it wasn't their first voice acting role, it was one of their first. Which is very interesting, right? I don't know what that means, but it's very interesting too. It is yet another similarity between the two works. And these two also have the same voice actors, but right? There's nothing similar here. What we are talking about in this video is a lot of selective bias, but anyway, let's have a little fun. And at the end of the day, both stories basically share many of the same things. Both are contemporary stories that take place in modern day Japan, where people have to fight demons. Both embrace this idea of having fun in something without limits. It's dirty, it's heavy, it's violent, sometimes even immoral, but it always has its breaks that often tries to make you laugh or relax, even in the midst of so much tense subject matters, dealing with monsters and what it means to risk your life in that extremely hostile world, and how the protagonist has to unfold himself and understand his own feelings to proceed and achieve his goals. But even with all these similarities, all you have to do is to consume the two stories, whether reading or watching, and you can easily realize that they are completely different. And even walking together, both remain at the top with their own merits, giving you different experiences in different ways, but being similar enough that if you like one, you will like the other. Each one creates a very interesting world that immerses you, despite being very simple. They are stories that are masters of simplicity and use it well, so you don't have to use 101% of your brain while watching to understand something. Stories that don't take too seriously when the idea is telling a story. Being simple here is not a bad thing. It's one of the strong points. And sometimes it even makes you think stuff like, let's swap Makima's and Satoru's places and see what the fuck will happen. It would be really interesting. And and that was all I noticed that was similar between the two works while I was watching. There's no way not to think about it. Of course, I'm not going to connect everything that is similar between them. One, I don't remember, and some other things are too far-fetched that don't make much sense. And only if you really want for them to have a connection that they will have it. But I'm sure you have also already caught some of the things that happen in both. If you want to comment on anything else that I missed, feel free. But since I'm really in the mood for shooting, comparing the two, I personally prefer the villains from Chainsaw Man to those from Jujutsu. But the rest of the characters, the ones from Jujutsu, are much more memorable than those from Chainsaw Man. Except Power, because Power is Bay, right? What do you think? Which of the two is better? Jujutsu Kaisen or Chainsaw Man? Just don't kill yourselves in the comments.
Didn't you say there was one more story?
Ah, yeah, Jigoku Kagaku.